I turned 77 last month, and at that age, you think you've seen all the changes life can throw at you. The world slows down, or so you hope, and you settle into a rhythm of small joys. Morning tea, a good book, the way the light hits the lake at dawn. I lived in Kinburn, Wisconsin, a town so small it barely warranted a dot on the map. 6 blocks of Main Street, Ted's Diner, where the coffee was strong enough to wake the dead, Jensen's Grocery, with its creaky wooden floors and jars of penny candy, a pharmacy where old Mr. Larson still dispensed advice with every prescription, and the post office, where gossip traveled faster than the mail. The Northland paper mill was the town's pulse, and for 38 years, I was its bookkeeper, balancing ledgers with a precision that made me proud, even on the days when the numbers blurred and my eyes ached. My house in Kinburn was modest, a single story with a tidy garden of roses and lavender, their scent drifting through the open windows in summer. It sat on a quiet street, surrounded by a dozen homes just like it, where neighbors waved but didn't linger, their lives as predictable as the seasons. But my true home, my sanctuary, was 30 minutes away, on the shores of Lake Michigan. A cabin, simple, wooden, 2 stories with a veranda that wrapped around 3 sides, like a warm embrace. A river-stone fireplace stood in the living room, each stone laid by my husband, Alan, his hands steady and sure, his gray eyes bright with pride as he worked. We bought it a year before he died, emptying our savings to make it ours. "Judy," he'd said, standing on the veranda, his hand on my shoulder, "this is where we'll live the life we've always wanted. No more scrimping, no more waiting. Just you, me, and the lake." We had one summer there, one perfect summer of fishing off the dock, planting irises and hostas along the path to the beach, sitting on the veranda with coffee as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the water gold and pink. Alan's laughter filled the air, his gray hair catching the wind, his hand always finding mine. I can still see him, kneeling by the fireplace, setting each stone with care, humming a tune I can't quite recall but feel in my bones. He'd carved wooden ducks in the evenings, his knife shaping them with a patience I envied, lining them up on the mantel like a flock waiting to take flight. The fishing rods in the corner, their lines tangled from our last trip, stood as silent witnesses to our joy. Then, one August night 20 years ago, his heart stopped in his sleep. I was 57, and the world I'd built with him shattered. I couldn't go back to the cabin for years. Every corner held him, his wicker chair on the veranda, creaking when I sat in it, the ducks, their polished surfaces catching the light, the rods gathering dust. The pain was a blade, cutting with every glance. I stayed in Kinburn, hiding in my routine, balancing books for the mill until I retired, trying to outrun the grief. But time has a way of softening edges, and eventually, I returned. The cabin became my refuge, my place of peace. I spent most of the year there, only retreating to Kinburn when the lake froze and the roads turned to ice. I'd walk the path to the beach, tending the flowers Alan and I planted, their colors a quiet rebellion against loss. I'd sit in his chair, a book in my lap, the lake whispering memories. It wasn't just a house. It was Alan. It was us. It was the life I still clung to. That morning, as I brewed my tea in the Kinburn house, the phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID and smiled. Lavinia, my grandniece, 28, with red curls that danced in the wind and freckles like stars scattered across her cheeks. She was the daughter of my niece, Faye, who'd been taken by cancer 5 years ago at 45. Too young, too soon. Lavinia inherited Faye's warmth, her joy, her stubborn kindness. She called from Green Bay, an hour's drive away, her voice a burst of sunlight through the clouds. Lavinia, over the phone, cheerful. Aunt Judith, you up already? Or did I wake you from your beauty sleep? Judith, laughing softly. Darling, I've been rising at 6 for 50 years. The habit's as stubborn as I am. You coming this weekend? Lavinia, Saturday for lunch. Need anything from the city? Judith, those croissants from the French bakery. And treat yourself to something nice. Lavinia, done. See you soon, Aunt Judith. Judith, narrator. Lavinia visited often, not out of duty, but because she loved the cabin as much as I did. We'd work in the garden together, planting perennials along the path, irises with their delicate purple petals, hostas with their broad green leaves, echinacea that bloomed defiant in the summer heat. We'd sit on the veranda at sunset, the lake turning gold, talking about everything and nothing. She'd tell me about her job in Green Bay, managing marketing campaigns for a small firm, her dreams of starting her own business, her latest misadventure with a leaky faucet in her cramped apartment. I'd share stories of Alan, how he'd tease me about my meticulous ledgers, how he'd dance with me in the kitchen to no music at all. She was the only family who truly saw me, not as an old woman to be managed, but as Judith, with stories worth hearing and a heart still beating strong. I sip my tea, gazing at a photo on the wall, Alan and me, standing in front of the cabin the day we bought it. His hand rested on my shoulder, his smile wide, his gray hair fluttering in the breeze. I could still hear his voice, low and warm, promising we'd grow old there together. I'd grown old, but without him. Still, the cabin kept him close, its walls holding our laughter, our dreams, our love. The phone rang again, and my heart sank. Brent, my son. His name on the screen was like a cold wind sweeping through the room, chilling the warmth of Lavinia's call. Brent was 42, a systems administrator in Milwaukee, successful by any measure, except as a son. He'd always been distant, even as a boy. He didn't cry like other children, didn't laugh easily. His eyes, so like Alan's, held a cool detachment, as if he were observing the world from behind a glass wall. I'd tried to reach him, reading him bedtime stories, baking his favorite chocolate chip cookies, taking him to the park to chase fireflies. But he'd shut me out, retreating into his own world. I remembered one summer when he was 6, sitting on the porch, staring at a beetle crawling across the wood. I'd knelt beside him, pointing out its shiny shell, trying to spark a smile. "It's just a bug, Mom," he'd said, his voice flat, and walked away. Alan said I worried too much, that Brent was just serious, driven. He was right, in a way. Brent graduated high school with honors, studied IT at the University of Wisconsin, and built a life in Milwaukee I barely understood. He called once a month, visited twice a year, Thanksgiving and my birthday, like clockwork. His visits were formal, brief, as if he were checking a box. 10 years ago, he married Trinity Ashton, a polished woman from a wealthy Chicago family. Tall, slender. With raven hair and manicures that never chipped, she looked at my Kinburn house with barely concealed disdain, as if it were a relic of a life she'd never choose. The first time we met, I offered her coffee and my specialty apple pie, warm from the oven. Trinity, politely but cold. Trinity, politely but cold. "Oh, Judith, I'm gluten-free. But don't worry, I brought my smoothie." Judith, narrator. She pulled a sleek metal bottle from her purse, and I felt like I'd failed some unspoken test. Trinity was polite, but her politeness hid condescension, as if my small-town life, my simple home, was something to apologize for. 4 years ago, they had twins, Audrey and Hudson, sweet children with Brent's gray eyes and Trinity's sharp cheekbones, but I barely knew them. Brent and Trinity rarely brought them to visit, and when they did, they hovered, watching my every move as if I might taint their perfect offspring with my homemade cookies or small-town ways. I answered the phone, my hand steady despite the knot in my stomach. Brent, over the phone, formal. "Hi, Mom. How are you feeling?" Judith, guarded. "I'm fine, Brent. How about you and Trinity?" Brent. "We're good. Listen, we're coming this weekend. There's something we need to talk about. In person." Judith. "Is something wrong?" Brent. "No, just better in person. Saturday afternoon. Lavinia's coming too." Judith. "Yes, she'll be here." Brent, coolly. "Fine. See you then." Judith, narrator. He hung up without waiting for a reply. Typical Brent. Always in a hurry, as if every moment with me was a transaction to be completed. My stomach twisted, the knot tightening. Brent never visited without a reason, and his tone carried a weight I couldn't name, like a storm gathering over the lake. I called Lavinia, warning her of his visit. Lavinia, concerned. "He doesn't just show up, Aunt Judith. What's he want?" Judith. "I don't know, darling, but I'd feel better if you were here early." Lavinia. "I'll be there by 11. You won't face him alone." Judith, narrator. The rest of the week passed in a haze of unease. I followed my routine: breakfast, cleaning, reading, a walk to the park. But my mind churned. Was it money? Unlikely. They had plenty. Work troubles? Brent never shared those with me. The twins? They'd never trusted me to babysit. No, it was something bigger, something that made my heart race with dread. I tried to picture Brent's face, searching for the boy I'd raised, but all I saw was the man he'd become. Cold, driven, a stranger. Friday, I pulled out my navy blue dress with the floral print, the one Alan loved. "It suits your eyes," he'd say, his voice soft, his fingers brushing my cheek. I hadn't worn it in years, but it still fit. A little looser now. Age had taken a few pounds, but not my resolve. I hung it on the closet door, a quiet armor for the battle I sensed was coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts spun. Brent's voice, the cabin, Alan's smile. I walked to the living room, touching the photo on the wall. Alan and I, the cabin behind us, the lake stretching into forever. "What would you do, love?" I whispered. He'd always known how to handle Brent, finding a way through his walls. Once, when Brent was 8, he'd demanded a toy train at the store. I'd said no, and he'd thrown a tantrum, his face red, his small fists clenched. Alan knelt beside him, speaking softly, and somehow Brent listened. The next day, Alan brought home the train, winking at me. "He deserves it," he'd said. I disagreed, thinking it taught Brent to take without earning. Now I wondered if that moment had planted a seed, one that grew into the man who thought he could take my home. I went to bed, but sleep eluded me. Something told me tomorrow would change everything. Judith, narrator. Saturday dawned bright, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. The lake sparkled beyond Kinburn, a reminder of the cabin waiting for me. I slipped into my navy blue dress, its floral print soft under my fingers, and smoothed my hair in the mirror. Alan's voice echoed in my mind. "It suits your eyes." And I felt a flicker of his strength. Lavinia arrived at 11, her blue Ford rattling into the driveway, a box of croissants and wildflowers in her arms. Lavinia, warmly, "You look beautiful, Aunt Judith. That dress, it's like you're ready for battle." Judith, Riley, "It's old, but Alan loved it. Maybe it'll give me strength today." Judith, narrator. We sat in the kitchen, sipping tea, nibbling homemade cookies, trying to guess Brent's intentions. Money? No, they had plenty. Trinity's family money, and Brent's high-paying job. The twins? They'd never trusted me to babysit, always hovering as if I'd drop Audrey or Hudson. Something else, something that made my heart race with dread. Lavinia's freckles scrunched as she frowned, her green eyes sharp with worry. Lavinia, he's up to something, Aunt Judith. Brent doesn't visit for no reason. Judith, I know, but what? He wouldn't tell me on the phone. Lavinia, maybe he wants the cabin for vacations. You know how Trinity loves her getaways. Judith, narrator. The thought hit like a stone in my chest. The cabin, my refuge, Alan's dream. The place where I felt him in every creak of the floorboards, every glint of the lake. I pushed the fear down, pouring more tea, but my hands trembled slightly. The clock ticked toward noon, each second heavy with anticipation. Then I heard it. The purr of Brent's silver Lexus, smooth and out of place in Kinburn's quiet streets. The sound of car doors slamming, footsteps on gravel. The music tightens, a violin note stretching thin. Brent stood on the doorstep, tall and trim in a gray suit that looked untouched by the 2-hour drive, his cologne sharp and expensive. Behind him was Trinity, impeccable in white slacks and an ivory silk blouse, her sunglasses hiding her eyes, her raven hair pulled into a flawless bun. No twins, just the two of them, like emissaries from a world I didn't belong to, their presence a silent judgment on my simple life. Brent, coolly, Mom, you look good. Judith, hello, Brent. Trinity, come in. Judith, narrator. They stepped inside, and Brent's eyes flicked to Lavinia, annoyance flashing across his face, a tightening of his jaw. Brent, oh, you're here. I didn't know we'd have company. Lavinia, brightly, undeterred. Hello, cousin. Good to see you, Trinity. Judith, narrator. Trinity removed her sunglasses, offering a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lavinia hugged Brent, her warmth meeting his frost, his arms barely reciprocating. I offered tea and croissants, trying to ease the tension, my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside. Judith, I made tea and Lavinia brought croissants. Come into the kitchen. Brent, brusque. Actually, Mom, we need to talk. Let's sit in the living room. Judith, narrator. We settled across from each other, Brent and Trinity on the couch, Lavinia and I in chairs, the coffee table a barrier between us. Brent sat stiffly, his hands clasped, his posture that of a man about to deliver a presentation. Trinity crossed her legs, her white polished nails resting on Brent's knee, her face calm but unreadable. The air felt heavy, charged with something unspoken, like the moment before lightning strikes. Judith, smoothing her dress. So, Brent, what did you want to talk about? Brent, clearing his throat. Trinity and I have discussed this at length. We've made a decision. It's about the lake house. Judith, narrator. My heart stopped, a cold wave washing over me. The cabin, my sanctuary, Alan's dream. The place where I felt him in every stone of the fireplace, every ripple on the lake. I gripped the armrest, my knuckles whitening, but kept my voice steady, my face calm. Judith, what about the cabin? Brent. Mom, you're 77, living alone out there, so far from help. It's not safe. We're worried about your safety. Trinity, interjecting, her voice smooth. And maintaining 2 houses is a burden. The utility bills, taxes, repairs. It's too much for you to handle. Judith. I manage just fine. I have savings, neighbors who check on me. Gina and Cliff Weatherby stop by every day. Lavinia installed a panic button. I'm not helpless. Brent, firmly. It's not enough. We've decided the cabin should go to Trinity and me. Now, for family vacations. The twins need a place to grow, to be outdoors. You won't have to worry about upkeep. Judith, narrator. I stared at my son, his face calm but resolute, as if he were claiming what was rightfully his. Lavinia's eyes blazed, her hands clenched in her lap, but she waited for me to speak. The cabin wasn't just a house. It was Alan's laughter, his hand on mine, the flowers we planted together. It was my life, my freedom, and Brent wanted to take it, to erase me from it. Judith. Pass it on? You mean when I'm gone? Brent, cutting in, his voice sharp. No, now. We've consulted a lawyer. It can be a deed of gift, or there are other legal avenues. Lavinia, indignant, standing. You're threatening your mother with a lawsuit. That's her home. She lives there, Brent. Brent, coldly. It's family property, Lavinia, and you're not even directly related. This is between Mom and us. Judith, sharply, her voice rising. Don't you dare say that. Lavinia is as much family as you are. More, in some ways. She's here. She cares. Judith, narrator. The room crackled with tension, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Brent's irritation was palpable, his jaw tight, his eyes narrowing. Trinity sat still, her face a mask of indifference, but her fingers tapped lightly on Brent's knee, a silent signal. They spoke of safety, of finances, but it was a lie, a veneer over their greed. They wanted the cabin for themselves, to strip me of the one place where I felt whole, where Alan's presence lingered in every corner. I remembered Brent at 10, demanding a new bicycle when his was barely a year old. I'd said no, explaining we couldn't afford it. He'd sulked for days, refusing to speak, until Alan bought it for him, winking at me. He's a kid, Judy. Let him dream. I disagreed, fearing it taught Brent to expect without earning. Now here he was, demanding my home, my memories, as if they were his to claim. Trinity, coolly. We found a wonderful nursing home in Green Bay. You'd be comfortable there, Judith. They have activities, medical staff, everything you need. Lavinia, standing, furious. Are you crazy? Judith is independent. She cooks, gardens, lives her life. She doesn't need a nursing home. Trinity, unfazed. She fell last year, broke her wrist. What if it had been her hip? Or her head? The hospital's 40 minutes away. Judith. I slipped on wet leaves. It could happen to anyone. I called the ambulance myself, got to the hospital, and healed just fine. Lavinia. Aunt Judith isn't going anywhere, and she's not giving you the cabin. It's her property, her right to use it as she sees fit. Brent, standing, his face flushed. You have no say in this, Lavinia. We're looking out for Mom, for the family. The twins need a place like the cabin, somewhere to make memories. Judith, narrator. Memories. The word stung. The cabin was my memories. Alan laying stones for the fireplace, his hands calloused but gentle. Our first summer, planting flowers along the path, their colors bright against the sand. Evenings on the veranda, a book in my lap, tea in my hand, the lake turning pink at dawn. Brent hadn't been there in years, hadn't walked the path, hadn't sat by the fireplace. He didn't know the flowers, the view, the soul of the place. He wanted it for his children, he said, but it was for him, for Trinity, for their image of a perfect life. Judith, firmly. The cabin is mine, Brent. Your father and I bought it with our savings. It's where I feel him, where I feel alive. I spend half the year there, and I'm not giving it up. Brent, condescending. Mom, your health is failing. Your eyesight's not what it was. Your blood pressure's up and down. The hospital's 40 minutes away. What if something happens? You're alone out there. Judith. I slipped once, Brent. Once. I'm fine. I have neighbors, Gina and Cliff, who check on me daily. Lavinia visits every weekend. I have a panic button. I'm not alone, and I'm not helpless. Brent, insistent. It's not enough. Trinity and I have discussed it, and we've decided what's best. The cabin comes to us, and you move to Green Bay. The nursing home is top-rated, Mom. You'll be safe. Judith, narrator. His words cut deeper than I expected, each one a betrayal of the life I'd built, the love I'd carried. Brent had always been distant, but this was different. Calculated, cruel, as if I were a problem to be solved, a relic to be shelved. I remembered him as a boy, sitting at the kitchen table, his gray eyes fixed on a puzzle, ignoring my attempts to draw him out. I'd bake his favorite cookies, read him stories, take him to the park, but he'd retreat, his walls impenetrable. Alan would say, "He's just serious, Judy. He'll come around." But he never did. And now, he sat across from me, demanding the one thing that kept me whole. Lavinia. How often have you visited her, Brent? Twice a year. 3? I'm here every weekend. Who do you think knows what she needs? Brent, snapping. This isn't your business, Lavinia. Stay out of it. Judith, raising her voice. Enough. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. I'm still sane, still capable of making my own decisions. Judith, narrator. The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to choke on. Brent sat back, his posture still tense, his eyes flicking to Trinity. She nodded slightly, a silent signal, and he softened, but it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Brent, calmly, too calmly. Okay, Mom, think about our offer. We'll come back next Saturday to discuss it further. We just want what's best for you and the family. Judith, you can visit any time, Brent. I'd love to see the twins, but the cabin stays mine. Trinity, interjecting. It's not the same. They need their own space without constant supervision. Judith, narrator. I knew what she meant. Without an old woman hovering, a reminder of a life they didn't value. I held my ground, my voice firm. Judith. It's my property, and I'll decide what happens to it. Judith, narrator. Brent's face softened, but his eyes held a glint of calculation. Brent. Fine, Mom. We'll talk next week. Judith, narrator. They left, their dry hugs and polite smiles like a formality, a transaction completed. I watched their Lexus disappear around the corner, the knot in my stomach tightening. Brent's calm wasn't peace. It was a pause, a regrouping. I had 1 week to act. That night, as Lavinia and I sat by the fire, Brent called again. His voice was hard, final. Brent, over the phone. Mom, I've thought it over. There's no point delaying. We'll be there next Saturday to pick up the keys and move your things. The cabin's ours now. It's decided. Judith, calmly, her voice steady. Okay, Brent, whatever you say. Lavinia, shocked, standing. You agreed? Aunt Judith, why? Judith, smiling mysteriously. I didn't agree, darling. I just bought us time. Call that land in Maple Grove. We're going to look at it Monday. Judith, narrator. I hung up, my heart racing not with fear, but with purpose. Brent thought he'd won, but he'd underestimated me. The cabin was mine, and I'd fight for it, not with lawsuits or shouts, but with a plan so bold it felt like magic, like a story spun from the pages of a fantastical tale. Judith, narrator. Monday morning, Lavinia and I drove to Maple Grove, the lake sparkling beside us like a promise of new beginnings. The air was crisp, filling my lungs with a clarity I hadn't felt since my days at the mill, when I'd tackle complex ledgers under impossible deadlines. My hands gripped the wheel, not with fear, but with a fire, a defiance I thought I'd lost to age. The plot was 20 minutes away, a hectare of pine trees and open sky, with a gentle slope to the water. It was secluded, quiet, perfect. Like the cabin had been waiting to come here all along, its soul ready to take root in new soil. Norma Pettigrew greeted us, her red pickup parked by a weathered "for sale" sign. She was a sturdy woman with a short haircut and a laugh that echoed across the clearing, her enthusiasm infectious. Norma, beaming. Norma, beaming. "Mrs. Howard, this place is a gem. Clear water, fertile soil, neighbors just far enough away to give you peace. What's your plan for it?" Judith, firmly, "I'm moving my house here. The whole thing." Norma, stunned, laughing. "The whole house? Well, you don't do things by halves, do you, Judith?" Judith, narrator. We walked the land. Norma pointing out the view, a stretch of lake that mirrored the sky, framed by pines that whispered in the breeze. The slope to the water was gentle, perfect for a dock, and the soil was rich, ready for a garden like the one Alan and I had built. I asked about access roads. Could a truck carry a house through? Norma. "The road's gravel, solid. Heavy equipment came through when they laid the power line 3 years ago. A house? No problem, if the foundation's ready." Judith. "It will be. I need this done fast." Judith, narrator. By noon, I'd signed the papers, my hand trembling not with doubt, but with excitement, a thrill I hadn't felt in years. The plot was mine, the first step of a plan so audacious it felt like I'd stepped into a fairy tale, a story where the heroine outwits the villain with cunning and heart. I could almost hear Alan chuckling, his voice warm in my ear. "Judy, you're a force." Back home, I called Ed Pritchard, a handyman who'd patched the cabin's roof, fixed its creaky floors, and replaced its stubborn windows for a decade. Ed was retired, but still worked to, as he put it, keep from souring up at home. Ed, over the phone, cheerful. "Judith, what's up? Roof leaking again? Or is it that squeaky porch step?" Judith. "No, Ed. I need to move my house, the whole thing, by Saturday." Ed, whistling, pausing. "Move a house? Judith, are you dodging someone in your old age?" Judith. "My son, if you must know. He's trying to take the cabin from..." Ed, indignant. Indignant. "What a bastard. I know a crew, Johnson and Sons in Green Bay. They moved a church in Milltown last year after a flood. They're fast, clean. I'll get you their number." Judith. And Ed, "I need one more thing. Something creative." Judith, narrator. I explained the second part of the plan, the twist that made Lavinia laugh out loud when I'd shared it over tea. Brent wanted a 2-story wooden house with a veranda and 4 rooms, per the deed. So we'd give him one, a sham house, a mockery of his greed. Ed's crew, Tim, Jesse, and Randy, carpenters with calloused hands and a knack for mischief, agreed to build it on the old foundation. Crooked walls, a leaky roof, floors with gaps you could see the ground through, a house in name only, a trap to match Brent's arrogance. Ed, grinning over the phone. "Judith, this'll be the worst house I've ever built. A masterpiece of junk. The boys'll love it." Judith. "Make it legal, Ed, but unlivable." Judith, narrator. I called Ray Johnson, the mover, next. He was all business. His voice clipped, asking about the cabin's dimensions, materials, foundation. I answered, every detail vivid from the day Alan and I bought it. 24 by 36 feet. Wooden frame, built in 1978. Sturdy, but simple. Ray. Tight deadline, but doable. Costly, though, with the rush. Judith. Money's no issue. Just make it happen by Saturday. Ray. We'll start Wednesday at dawn. Clear out valuables and fragile items. My team will assess tomorrow. Judith, narrator. The week was a fever dream, a whirlwind of action and emotion. Lavinia took time off work, arriving with boxes and crates. We packed photos of Alan and me, his wooden ducks, letters we'd written during his mill shifts, dishes from antique store hunts in Green Bay. Each item was a memory, a piece of Alan I carried with me. I held a duck, its smooth surface warm under my fingers, remembering Alan carving it by the fire, his knife steady, his humming off-key. I packed the fishing rods, their lines tangled from our last trip, the summer he died. The work was exhausting but cleansing, like I was gathering my life to take it somewhere new. I walked the cabin one last time, touching the walls, the fireplace stones, the veranda railing. The lake stretched beyond, its waves whispering memories. I saw Alan kneeling by the path, planting irises, his hands covered in soil. I saw us dancing in the kitchen, no music but our laughter. I saw myself, alone after his death, learning to live again in this place. It wasn't just a house, it was my heart, and I wouldn't let Brent take it. Tuesday evening, Ray's appraisers arrived, 2 men in work overalls, Mike and a younger guy with a red beard. They walked the cabin, tapping walls, measuring openings, checking the wood. Mike, nice structure, sturdy, should transport fine if we reinforce it. Foundation ready at the new site? Lavinia, builders start pouring it tomorrow in Maple Grove. Mike, good. We'll disconnect utilities Wednesday, lift Thursday, move Friday. Tight, but we'll make it. Judith, narrator. Wednesday. The movers arrived at dawn, 8 men with tools clanking, steel beams gleaming in the early light. They worked like a symphony, disconnecting electricity and water, digging trenches around the foundation, reinforcing walls with steel. Lavinia and I watched from the lawn, wicker chairs dragged from the veranda, a thermos of tea between us. The cabin groaned as they prepared it, like it knew it was about to embark on a journey. Lavinia, awed. It's like watching a house come alive, like it's ready to run away with us. Judith, Alan would have loved this. He was fascinated by engineering, cranes, bridges, anything that moved the impossible. Judith, narrator. By Thursday, the cabin was ready to lift. Hydraulic jacks hummed, raising it a meter above the ground. A surreal sight, like a ship floating on a sea of steel. The lake glittered beyond, a silent witness. Ed's crew started on the sham house, hammering together a mockery of a home. Tim, the tallest, sketched the plan on a crumpled sheet, grinning. Tim, it'll look like a house, ma'am, but only a raccoon would live there. Crooked stairs, bare walls, a roof that'll leak at the first rain. Jessie, laughing. We're using scrap wood from other jobs. It'll be a masterpiece of awful. Judith, perfect. Just make sure it matches the deed. 2 stories, wooden, veranda, 4 rooms. Judith, narrator. Friday. The cabin moved. A slow procession, 20 kilometers an hour, strapped to a multi-wheeled platform that rumbled like a giant's heartbeat. Drivers gaped as we passed, a house rolling down the road like a fantastical beast, pines bowing in its wake. The lake followed us, its waves a reminder of what I was fighting for. Lavinia drove behind, her Ford keeping pace. her grin visible through the windshield. I sat beside her, my heart pounding with excitement, with defiance, with a strange joy. We reached Maple Grove by dusk, the new foundation fresh, the cement still sharp in the air. The movers lowered the cabin with care, hydraulic jacks humming, the house settling as if it had always belonged there. The lake sparkled just beyond, its surface catching the last rays of sunlight. Lavinia, whispering, her arm around my shoulders. "You did it, Aunt Judith. We did it." Judith. "We did, darling." Judith, narrator. I felt relief. Freedom, a new chapter opening under the same old roof. The cabin stood strong, its soul intact, Alan's presence in every board. But the plan wasn't done. Tomorrow, Brent would arrive, and the real test would begin. Judith, narrator. Saturday morning, we returned to the old site, the lake shimmering in the distance like a taunt. Ed's crew was finishing the sham house, a rickety, pathetic thing that looked like it might collapse in a breeze. The porch wobbled under Randy's light steps. The roof sagged with cheap roofing felt already peeling. The walls gaped with gaps you could see the sky through. Bare planks served as floors, uneven and splintered. The stairs to the second floor a hazard of mismatched steps and no railing. It was a house in name only, a mockery of Brent's demands, and it was perfect. Ed, grinning, wiping sweat from his brow. A masterpiece of tastelessness, Judith. The worst I've ever built. Tim says a raccoon wouldn't even nest here. Judith, smiling. Keep up the good work, Ed. It's exactly what I wanted. Judith, narrator. I walked the sham house, laughing nervously at its absurdity. The living room was a bare space, the floorboards uneven, gaps showing the dirt below. Polyethylene patches covered window holes, flapping in the breeze. The upstairs rooms were worse. One had a hole in the floor, another a ceiling that let in daylight. It matched the deed. 2 stories, wooden veranda, 4 rooms. But it was unlivable, a trap sprung with precision. Then Brent's silver Lexus pulled up, its engine a low growl. He stepped out, tall and polished, Trinity trailing with her clipboard, Audrey and Hudson clutching stuffed animals, their eyes heavy with sleep. Brent's confidence faltered as he saw the structure, his steps slowing, his brow furrowing. Brent, stammering, his voice rising. "What? What's that? Where's the house?" Judith, calmly, her smile steady. "Hello, Brent. Here's the house, as promised. 2 stories, wooden, veranda, 4 rooms, just like the deed says." Trinity, sharp, stepping forward. "This is a circus, Judith. Where's the real house?" Judith. "This is the house. Want to see inside? It's got 4 beautiful rooms." Judith, narrator. Brent stormed up the porch, the boards creaking dangerously under his weight. He swung the door open, peering inside, his face turning crimson with rage. Brent, shouting. "This isn't a house. It's a barn. Where's the fireplace, the furniture? What have you done?" Judith, evenly. "I disposed of my property, Brent. The fireplace wasn't in the deed." Lavinia, smirking, stepping forward. "It's legal, Brent. A house, exactly as described. No electricity, no plumbing, but definitely a house. Check the papers." Judith, narrator. Brent's fury was a storm, his face flushed, the vein in his forehead throbbing. Trinity looked ready to faint, her perfect composure cracking, her clipboard forgotten in her hand. The twins wandered closer, curious despite the tension. Hudson, tugging Trinity's sleeve. "Mom, can we live here?" Trinity, snapping, her voice sharp. "No, of course not," Lavinia, calmly. "Legally, it's a residential structure. True, the roof might leak, and the second floor's missing in places. But it's a house. Judith, narrator. Brent paced, his hands clenched, then pulled out his phone, dialing his lawyer. He shouted into the receiver, his voice echoing across the empty lot. Brent, frantic. Patrick, she stole the house. The whole house. There's just this shack here. There's got to be a law against this. Judith, narrator. But the lawyer's voice, faint through the phone, was calm, methodical. I caught snippets. Matches the deed. No legal grounds. Technically a house. Brent's shoulders slumped, his face a mix of rage and helplessness. He hung up, turning to me, his eyes blazing. Brent, desperate. Mom, let's be reasonable. Tell me where you moved the house. We can share it, or I'll buy it at market value. We can work this out. Judith, firmly. You said it was yours, Brent. I agreed. Here's your house. Enjoy it. Trinity, hissing to Brent. You lost, Brent. She outsmarted you. There's nothing here to take. Judith, narrator. The twins lingered, their curiosity cutting through the tension. Hudson, his gray eyes wide, picked up a small quartz-veined pebble from the path and ran to me. Hudson, softly. Grandma, it's for you. It's beautiful. Judith, smiling, taking the pebble. Thank you, honey. It's really beautiful. Judith, narrator. I clutched the pebble, its smooth surface warm in my palm. A tiny gift from a grandson I barely knew. Trinity called Hudson back, her voice sharp, and led the twins to the car. Brent stood, staring at the sham house, his defeat written in his slumped shoulders. Brent, low, threatening. This isn't over, Mom. I'll find a way to get the house back. Judith, calmly. Good luck, Brent. It's mine, and I've done nothing illegal. Judith, narrator. They drove off. Brent's threats fading into the distance, the Lexus disappearing around the bend. Lavinia squeezed my hand, her grin triumphant. Lavinia, you did it, Aunt Judith. You beat him at his own game. Judith, we did, darling. And it feels like freedom. Judith, narrator. I felt no pain, only relief, a weight lifting I hadn't known I carried. The lake shimmered behind the sham house, a reminder of what I'd saved. Judith, narrator. The cabin settled into Maple Grove, its new home, as if it had always belonged there. The lake sparkled just beyond, its waves a softer echo of the old site. But the soul of the house was unchanged, Alan's presence in every board, every creak, every memory. Lavinia moved in, her laughter filling the rooms, her red curls catching the light as she worked. We planted a new garden, irises, hostas, vegetables, their roots taking hold in the rich soil. We built a dock, Lavinia hammering boards with a focus that reminded me of Alan. At night, we sat by the fireplace, the wooden ducks back on the mantel, their polished surfaces glowing in the firelight. The move wasn't perfect. A few floorboards had loosened, the plumbing needed tweaking, but the cabin had weathered the journey like a ship that refused to sink. I unpacked slowly, placing photos on the walls, Alan and me on the veranda, our wedding day, a faded snapshot of Brent as a boy, smiling for once. The view was different. No big pine by the shore, just a gentle slope to the water. But it felt right, like a new chapter under the same roof. Lavinia, shouting from downstairs. Judith, where are my work gloves? Judith, calling back. Kitchen drawer, next to the oven mitts. Judith, narrator. Lavinia took 2 weeks off work, throwing herself into settling us in. She nailed boards to the veranda, consolidated the soil around the foundation, and built the dock with her own hands. I helped where I could, but mostly I sat in Alan's wicker chair, a cup of tea in hand, offering advice she pretended to need. Judith, teasing. Don't overwork yourself, darling. You're not building the pyramids. Lavinia, grinning, wiping sweat from her brow. I like it, Aunt Judith. In the office, I'm stuck at a computer. Here, I'm making something real. Judith, narrator. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Lavinia said something that stopped my heart. Lavinia, staring into the flames. You know, I think I'll stay here for good. My apartment in Green Bay is too small, too far from the lake. This feels like home. Judith, what about your job? It's a long commute. Lavinia, talk to my boss. I can work remotely 3 days a week. It's perfect. Less distractions, more done. Judith, narrator. I hesitated, not wanting to burden her, but the thought of her staying filled me with joy. Judith, you don't have to, darling. You're young. You need your own life. Lavinia, laughing. Aunt Judith, this is my life. Living by the lake with you in this house. It's what I want. Unless you mind. Judith, tearing up. Mind, I'd be happy. Judith, narrator. Lavinia sold her apartment and moved into the guest bedroom, turning it into a cozy nest with a desk by the window, the lake her backdrop. Our days found a rhythm. Breakfast on the veranda, Lavinia working or gardening, me reading or cooking, evenings by the fire, talking or sitting in comfortable silence. Months later, a letter arrived from Trinity, not Brent. Her neat handwriting on expensive paper felt like a ghost from the past. Trinity, in the letter, read by Judith. Judith, I hope this finds you well. Brent and I have decided not to pursue the house you left behind. We've sold the land to a developer who plans to demolish the structure and build a cottage community. We're moving to California. Brent has a new position at corporate headquarters. Enclosed are drawings from Audrey and Hudson. They asked me to give them to Grandma by the lake. Best wishes, Trinity. Judith, narrator. Attached were 2 drawings. Hudson's showed a blue lake house, much like ours, with waves and a dock. Audrey's showed an old woman in a dress, holding a cookie with "I love Grandma" scrawled above. I pinned them to the fridge, my heart caught between laughter and tears. Brent hadn't written, hadn't called, but the children remembered me. It was a small consolation, a flicker of warmth in the cold. Then, one spring day, a car pulled up, a stranger in a suit stepping out. Patrick Donovan, polite. Mrs. Howard, I'm Patrick Donovan, Brent's attorney. I have papers for you. Judith, wary. Papers? Is Brent suing after all? Donovan, no, ma'am. It's a deed of gift for the land on Lake Michigan. Brent's returning it to you, free and clear. Judith, narrator. I took the folder, stunned, and opened the envelope inside. Brent's handwriting, familiar but rare, stared back at me. Brent, in the letter, read by Judith. Mom, I thought for a long time before writing this. Pride kept me from admitting I was wrong, but time and distance have changed my perspective. I was wrong to try to take the cabin. It's not just a house. It's your family, your memories, your life with Dad. I don't ask for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. The land is a small part of what I owe you for all the years of love I didn't appreciate. Trinity, the kids and I are starting over in California. Maybe someday I'll find the strength to call. For now, I want you to be happy, wherever you are. Your son, Brent. Judith, narrator. I reread the letter, my eyes blurring. It was so unlike Brent. Proud, stubborn Brent, who never admitted fault. Lavinia read over my shoulder, her voice soft. Lavinia. He actually realized he was wrong. That's unbelievable. Judith. It is. And you know what's stranger? I don't feel angry anymore. Just free. Judith, narrator. The land was mine again, but I didn't need it. I had my home, Lavinia, my peace. Spring came, the lake thawing, the garden blooming. We planted irises along the new path to the dock, their purple petals bright against the earth. The house stood strong, a testament to resilience, to love, to the power of standing your ground. One evening, as a thunderstorm raged, the wind bending the pines, Lavinia and I sat by the fire, sipping hot chocolate. Lavinia, I wonder if that shack Ed's boys built survived this storm. Judith, smiling, doubt it. They built it to fall apart at the first gust. I hope the developer tore it down. Lavinia, laughing. Imagine the new owners finding ruins and thinking it's a house. Judith, narrator. We laughed, the fire crackling, the storm a distant roar. I leaned back in Alan's wicker chair, the lake beyond the window, and felt a peace I hadn't known in years. Judith, to Lavinia. I don't regret a thing, darling. For the first time, I did what was right for me. Lavinia, smiling. And Alan would approve. He'd say, Judy, you moved a mountain. Or at least a house. Judith, narrator. We laughed, the lake sparkling as the storm cleared. The house was more than walls. It was us, our stories, our triumph. And as the sun rose, painting the water gold, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. Judith, narrator. That's my story, a tale of betrayal, a house that moved, a woman who found her strength. If you take anything from it, let it be this. Your home is where your heart lives, and no one can take that unless you let them. Thanks for listening to Elizabeth's stories. Subscribe for more, and until next time, hold tight to what matters.